Hey everyone, today we're going to be considering which of the killers inside of the Entities realm could possibly be friends, have rivalries, or have some kind of relationship even. How they would interact basically, when out of the trials. Let's get into it. Starting off easy, let's talk about family, beginning with Rin and Kazan Yamaoka. The Yamaoka family is going to be partially reunited inside of the realm, after Rin, the great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Kazan, meets him. I get the feeling this reunion would likely go pretty poorly. Rin kind of hated that she was a Yamaoka, and had this inner fury. Also, the last family, or more so fatherly interaction Rin had, was her father cutting her to pieces, and kicking her through a glass partition. So, not exactly the best. Kazan, however, is likely going to have the complete opposite reaction, and be somewhat proud of his far-off descendant. Not only because the Yamaokas still exist, but because she's screaming and wielding a katana, which are like two of Kazan's favourite things. As two immortal, angry spirits though, we can probably assume they would just fight it out for a while, until the anger is all gone, get all that Yamaoka rage out. Then who knows, maybe they'd get on. The next family killer connection we have is between the Desires. Charlotte and Victor last left off in a pretty bad spot, after Victor straight up died. Charlotte actually returned to the realm for the purpose of reuniting with Victor, and because she was close to death herself. This is probably going to be quite an emotional reunion. I'd imagine once they are reunited, they'd likely keep to themselves, away from the other killers. Because these two really aren't your typical killers. I don't think they have any desire to interact with others who were considered as such either. The company of one another would be enough. Next up, I thought it would be interesting to cover the killers who simply wouldn't form any connections, or really interact with the others, because they're basically incapable of communication. So yeah, this section is for all the characters who are literally incapable of speech, or just aren't even human, so just won't be having much communication aside screeching, or just walking around doing their own thing. Pyramid Head is probably going to stay away from most other killers, and likely doesn't have emotions in the same way as the majority of the killers do. He's a bit of an anomaly in the realm, and I think he would just always be doing his own thing basically. It mentions in his lore that between his duties, he enters something called the Long Rest, so potentially between trials he's just sleeping. Demo is another character who's likely going to keep to themselves, digging tunnels, and also probably screaming at the crows or something. If we look at how they act in the show, it's in a very animalistic way, and so Demo's probably just going to happily roam around in between trials, doing its own thing, with little care for the other killers around it. Blight is another killer kind of incapable of speech, due to his jaw literally falling apart. So Blight is probably smacking into trees, trying to find more blighted plants, roaming around the different realms between trials. It's also worth noting that he probably has quite a bad relationship with most of the killers, what with him capturing many of them, and injecting them with suspicious orange vials that change them in a sizable way. Most of the killers injected by his serums aren't going to like him all that much. Someone like Doctor or Clown Say may actually be impressed, and despite Blight not being able to talk, potentially there would be a vague friendship of some kind there. Maybe more like a respect. A really messed up one, but hey, they're kind of into that. For Shape, I think he's just going to be standing around and heavily breathing. This is the embodiment of evil we're talking about. I think aside his oofs, when he gets pallet stunned, Shape never says a word, and never has since 1963. So I think forming connections is off the table for him. Many of the other killers may even fear him, as this entity of pure evil. Huntress doesn't seem to be able to speak any modern languages either, and is pretty much hostile to anyone or anything that comes near her, which isn't exactly the best for forming connections. So I reckon Huntress just chills out in her cabin in the Red Forest, and just does what she was doing before the realm, and protecting her land, stopping any of the killers from coming into the forest. Finally, Nemesis is probably stomping around, occasionally saying stars. That's my prediction at least. He doesn't seem to be able to say anything else. As a biological weapon built to kill, I'm not really sure what he does in his downtime, but I'm pretty certain he wouldn't be forming friendships with any of the other killers. Potentially he would even scare many of the other killers away. Characters like the Legion are probably terrified of him, but yeah, I think he would largely keep to himself. Maybe do a similar thing to Demo and chase the crows and stuff. Okay, so moving on to the killers who might be friends. Or maybe a better way to put it is the killers who are going to hold a degree of mutual respect for one another. as it were. The first grouping I can think of is Hillbilly and Deathslinger. These two are both inventors or tinkerers who make sadistic weaponry and are both pretty good at doing it. I imagine this would create a level of respect between them. I think the two of them kind of showing off their skills is something that could happen between trials. Potentially characters such as Clown with his own concoctions could be a part of this inventors group. Possibly Blight, although again I'm not sure how kind of there he is. Trapper may have some tie to this group with his homemade traps and weapons and personal modifications to them. Pig maybe too could draw attention from this group with her reverse bear traps. Potentially their meeting spot would even be Jigsaw's workshop on the game. The Ghostface and the Legion, I could see having almost a mentor-mentee relationship. Ghostface being a well-known killer with an established look and mask. Then the unexperienced Legion, who are obsessed with serial killers almost looking up to him. Again, messed up relationship, but I guess we can basically say that's a given for every killer relationship in the realm. The Legion are potentially Behavior's own version of the Scream Ghostface killers too, so it would make sense that they would be attracted specifically to Ghostface, particularly as he's one of the less scary and more human killers in the realm. So yeah, a mentor-mentee thing possibly. Ghostface could come hang out in Mount Ormond Resort with them. Trickster may also become friends with this grouping, Trickster being a similar age, and with the same love for killing that they have. Potentially Trickster could collab with Legion on some of their mixtapes. Who knows? With Ghostface's somewhat silly persona, with him laughing in the lobby, and taking photos in his Mori, he would probably get along with Trickster, who also sings and tosses around photos of his own. I could imagine both Bubba and Billy being friendly with one another. Maybe not friends, but I think Billy would allow Bubba to come stay at the Thompson house with him, which is quite similar to Bubba's own home. Billy was based on Bubba after all, so I think there would be a kind of friendship there. Both of them kind of sit in that same spot, of wanting to protect what they have, mostly out of fear, so I could see them largely being reclusive, and remaining on Coldwind for the most part. A similar kind of relationship could form between Sadako and Rin on the Yamaoka estate. They both have a shared trauma and are both depictions of an Onryo, possibly with their underlying humanity, similar age, and similarity in origin and power. They could form a connection. Next up, I think an interesting pairing would be both artist and trapper. Evan as a child is said to be quite creative and to enjoy drawing. Therefore I think both Evan and Kamina, with their quite tragic pasts and love for art, may form a connection. Evan almost like a student to Kamina. They can't really talk to each other, but they could surely communicate through their art. Okay, let's discuss Freddy, Trickster, Doctor, and Clown. These guys are the most messed up in terms of their intent and their outlook on what they're doing. I believe this would create a situation of a shared friendship of sorts due to having similar sadistic goals, but they'd also all hate each other and strive to be the worst out of the group. So yeah, frenemies? I think Freddy and Doctor would be at odds in particular, with Freddy having the dream world and Doctor his hallucinatory abilities, and also that they're just the most messed up of all the killers essentially. It would be this weird, messed up friendship rivalry, I think. These guys all have massive egos, so they're gonna hate when someone is doing what they do best better than them. So it's gonna be this weird, endless competition between them basically. Then on the flip side we have Trapper, Wraith, Nurse, Hag, Spirit, Plague, and Artist. This is a group for the killers who would possibly get together as the more emotionally broken or traumatized characters, who really don't even belong in the realm, and have enough humanity left to actually connect on a human level, and not because of something like their weapons or love for killing. Potentially this is one of the only groups characters like the twins may actually wander into at points. There's some characters in the realm who likely just entirely stick to themselves, as there's basically no reason to talk to any of the others, and they don't want to be there to begin with. As mentioned before, Victor and Charlotte would almost definitely be like this. They're just happy to be back together. I doubt they want to risk each other's safety by going near the other killers. Adiris I think would mainly just hang out alone. She's in a very unique situation, being basically the only character from an ancient civilization. Her language is going to be nowhere near understandable or translatable for any of the killers. I think her role as quite religious and dedicated to the entity would also mean she wouldn't really want to mix with the killers all that much. They may even stay away from her with concern for the plague she is carrying. I think Adiris wouldn't like the killers, even if they too were intensely loyal to the entity, as she wouldn't see their loyalty as comparable to hers being more of a dedication, and theirs being more self-serving, and for the means of killing. Less noble, I guess. Unlike Adiris's loyalty, that comes as a result of wanting to save her people. Legion are also going to probably be largely alone. As a group, they have all they need really with one another. They are just teenagers at the end of the day, and are a bit in over their heads when comparing them to the other killers of the realm. So yeah, I do think they would keep to themselves, for the most part. Pinhead and Chatterer are going to keep to themselves too. It seems they can come and go from the realm as they please. So in between trials, they may even just completely dip out of the realm and go back to their own. Arguably the whole pleasure and pain thing could be argued to be captured by characters like Clown or Ghostface even. I just feel like they would feel superior to them though, and wouldn't see them as peers. Possibly they could have a connection with Executioner. Pyramid Head embodied the mind of James Sunderland, and as a result, had both the pleasures and pains of his mind. Plus, Executioner is almost definitely on their power level too, so there would be more of a mutual respect. The Cenobites and the Executioner are both otherworldly judges in a sense, so hey, maybe they could somehow get along, I don't know. Finally, as mentioned at the start, I do think the Yamaokas would mostly keep to themselves. Kazan and Rin in their current states don't seem like they would want to mix with the other killers, but could probably tolerate each other after sorting out their family issues. Let's now look at the killers who would just straight up hate each other. Weirdly, I don't actually think there would be many who would. I think the thing with them all being largely despicable is that the killers wouldn't really have a hatred for each other. They don't necessarily all get along, but I think direct hate wouldn't be there, and it would just be more so the aforementioned rivalries. I could see the killers who were opposed to killing originally, like Wraith, Artist, Trapper, Plague, Twins, and so on, disliking the killers who love to kill, like Doctor and Trickster. They'd likely look down on them in a way, and not want to be around them, particularly as they didn't want to be in this position, but ended up here. And so looking at those actively enjoying something they despise so much would anger them. Finally, let's talk about any romantic relationships between the killers, which as a concept sounds kinda weird. Now, although I don't want to do the whole shipping thing, there are some pretty much confirmed romantic relationships inside of the realm. The main ones are between the different Legion members. Frank and Julie is all but confirmed and written in the lore, and Susie and Joey isn't directly mentioned, but it seems kind of suggested and quite probable. Then there's the relationship that was made pretty much official by behavior, between Nurse and the Wraith, who were said to have something between them. Presumably something romantic, as this was said just before they got matching Valentine's Day outfits. Wraith's outfit having a weapon which contained the heart of the Nurse. But that's it, no speculation, they're just the ones that are fairly close to confirmation. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and be sure to drop any connections or interactions you believe the killers would have down below. Thanks, and goodbye.